Welcome, welcome. I'm Sherrod McQueen. I'm the CEO of M5B Developments, and there's been a lot of questions being asked out there in regarding how to choose a developer, how to choose a project, and how to buy pre-construction. The question is, Sherrod, how did you make multi-millions of dollars buying pre-construction? And how come people are buying pre-construction now and they're losing their shirt? And there's certain fundamentals to being able to buy pre-construction if you really want to be successful. You can't just buy any condo anywhere or townhouse or house off spec, off plan, so that's pre-construction, and sit there and think, hey, I'm gonna be successful, I'm gonna make money. It doesn't work like that. Like anything else in life, there's a formula, and there's a formula to be successful. So I want you to be able to be successful. I want you to follow the formula. I've got 10 tips, 10 things that you really need to focus in on if you want to be successful when buying pre-construction. You could make millions of dollars too if you follow this plan. If you don't follow this plan, if you go off of the script, the likelihood is you're going to lose your money, and then you're going to be disenchanted by buying pre-construction. You're going to say pre-construction doesn't work. Pre-construction works. You didn't work. You didn't stick to the plan. You didn't do the things that you needed to do to be successful in this space, just like anything else. I thought the other day I had some money invested in some oil futures when I was early 20s, late teens. Can't remember exactly. I lost some of my OSAP money, which is here in Canada. It's a student loan money. I lost like $10,000. Felt like the whole world was crashing down. And now I realize the only reason I lost that money is because I didn't take it as a lesson. I actually took it as a loss because I never invested again. But that's what a lot of people do. You take a beating, you take a loss, and then you say, hey, I'm never going to do it again. It's not a loss, it's a lesson. Unless you take it as a loss, you never do it again. So I should have learned from that, which was I was investing in something that my dad had researched. I hadn't researched it whatsoever. That's a recipe for disaster. So I don't know how I thought I was going to turn out. I didn't know anything about it, and I put 10 grand in and I lost. And at the end of the day, it's my fault. It's not the stock market's fault. It's not my dad's fault. It's not the broker's fault. It's my fault because I didn't do what I needed to do to properly vet it. And I think if more people start taking responsibility for their investors and stop blaming the realtor or stop blaming the market or stop blaming some certain other things, you're going to be a lot more successful. So this is my 10 steps. Now listen, there's not only 10 steps. I could give you 100 different things and to look out for. But these top 10 are things that I really want you to look out for to kind of keep you safe, keep you in that safe zone. And then as you grow and you expand in this market, you're going to learn more. Of course, you can always tap in with me, Sherrod McQueen, CEO of M5B Developments. Now, the first thing you should be asking yourself is why me? Why should I listen to Sherrod McQueen? Like, who is he? Well, Sherrod McQueen is the Svengali, the fixer. I'm the one who other developers used to call before I had my development company to sell their hard to sell projects. So some of the largest developers in Toronto, which is a city of over 5 million people, used to call me, yours truly, to sell their projects when they couldn't sell them. And I got so many calls, but I would only take calls from developers who had great projects, great locations, and they probably didn't have the right sales team in place, or they didn't realize some of the benefits to the project they even had. So what I had to do is kind of repackage it, reintroduce it to the marketplace, send it out to people in my direct market. And then another thing I always do, I had to go over the numbers. The developers never had the numbers right in terms of what would this property rent out for, what would it carry for, what was the long-term appreciation. It's like they never wanted to get into it. They wanted to give you a price list and just throw it down. It's 500 grand, but 500 grand, it's not relative. People don't buy a price, they buy a payment. So how much is my payment gonna be? Can I break even? Can I cash flow? These are the type of things. But at any rate, like I said, I've sold as a real estate broker. I've been licensed over 20 years. I had my own real estate brokerage with 20 to 25, it was about 22 agents who were all doing six figures. It was all downtown Toronto, and we were all selling pre-construction. I've sold billions of dollars in pre-construction real estate. And that's what's a different angle from me as opposed to other developers. I used to be on the other side. A lot of developers come from the construction side. A lot of developers are lawyers before. I came from the sales side. So it's not a traditional route, but it's a route that actually I think more people should take because the sales side is the revenue side. So yes, keeping costs down is important, but obviously being able to generate revenue is the key to the game. When people say, I want to make money, they don't say, I want to keep costs down. They say, I want to create revenue. So revenue is the number one predictor of your success. Of course, you have to have good margins, but you have no margins if you can't sell any real estate, which is what people are finding out right now. They're not able to sell real estate in a down market. But my thing is, you never could sell real estate. Real estate was selling itself, and you were just a conduit in which the real estate was passing through. You never sold any real estate yet, and it's most people really haven't. They might have sold tens of millions of dollars, hundreds of millions, but they didn't really ever sell it. Unless you can sell in any market, you actually can't sell real estate. Real estate is selling yourself, and you happen to be there, and that's nice too. You can get rich like that, but at the end of the day, there's markets run in cycles. So when the cycle is down, then you see a lot of people driving Uber, see a lot of people going back from whence they came. But the true salespeople, the true marketers, the true people who can do this in the market, they're going to be successful. So that's me, because I was doing this. Over 20 years, had 20 agents, sold billions of dollars. So anyway, that's my pedigree. Look it up, got all the receipts, all the facts. I'm 47 years old, turning 48 just now, and been doing this since my early 20s. So that kind of tells you about the why. Now, here it is, the 10 things that you need to know if you're going to be buying a pre-construction. That's a property off plan, as they call it in the States or UK, off plan. The number one thing, and stop me if you heard this before, is location. It's not a good deal if the location is not ideal. Let me repeat that. It's not a good deal if the location is not ideal. So we're in Toronto. We're in the greater Toronto area. Let's say it's $1,000 a square foot in Toronto. Then someone says, okay, I'm going to go out 2 hours or 3 hours away from here, and I'm going to get it at $600 a square foot. The same property in a different location. The question is that property going to appreciate? Is that property going to cash flow? Is it going to make sense long term? Normally the answer is no. You're so far away from the GTA, it doesn't make sense. You may not be close to highways, but yes, they're selling this real estate so cheap, and then you feel like it's a deal. It's not a deal unless it's the right location. Now, right now, to me, is Toronto the right location to buy? Toronto's always a great location to buy at the right price. But at least the location is good. Is Niagara the right location to buy? Niagara is a great location to buy. Why? It's close to the highways. It's close to an international border. It's close to 3 international airports, right? It has it's the second most visited place in Canada year over year. Number 1 is the CN Tower, Toronto. Number 2 is Niagara. So it's a great place to visit. So all these different factors are going to really help you understand why you should buy in certain neighborhoods. So location is the number one thing. Don't think that you're getting a good deal and you're buying in a bad location and think I'm getting such a great deal that it doesn't matter. It always matters. The deal, the location is what predicates everything. So if you're not getting a location, then you're not good. If you're not getting a good location, you're not getting a good deal. It doesn't matter how cheap you're getting the property. I tell you a story about my first property. It was in Buffalo, and it was in the bad side of Buffalo. So there's some areas in Buffalo, like downtown Buffalo, Buffalo, New York, that you can buy it and you can do very well. I bought this property from an auction. I paid $1,000, and I was afraid to go pick up my rent. What I wound up doing, because I bought a property in a bad location, I was gonna get a property that did cash flow because I paid $1,000. I was making $300 a month, but I wasn't gonna get any appreciation. Obviously, I was afraid to pick up the rent, so it didn't work. So I wound up giving the property away to somebody in my family and let them manage. I just literally gave it away after like 3-4 months, so I probably netted out even. But the point being is I didn't choose the right location. So at the end of the day, if I'm not going to choose the right location, I'm not going to get the right results. So I don't want to just keep pushing this button, but I want people to really understand how to choose the right location is to make sure it's close to highways, to make sure it's close to industry, right? To make sure you check the rental rate. So it's not hard. You can go on whatever your local site is. You can check properties and see what they're renting for. And then you can go and take a mortgage calculator and say, based on the amount of rent, based on the amount of money I'm putting down, what's the rental amount going to be? And, what are my maintenance fees? What are all my carry costs? It's just something very easy that you can add up all on your own, and they need to balance. At least you need to be net neutral, meaning not losing money. And another thing I would really add into that is to make sure you add some vacancy. People do their numbers at 100% efficiency. There's never going to be 100% efficiency. So you have to add a 5% vacancy rate, and then you also need to add 5% for maintenance, because you're going to be doing maintenance on the properties. Different properties are going to require a different level of maintenance. But obviously, if you're going to get a property that is a condominium, it's going to be less maintenance, but you're going to have a maintenance fee, but the building's going to cover the maintenance, where you may not have a maintenance fee if you buy off plan a house or a semi-detached or a detached house, townhouse, but those fees, the maintenance fees, you're still going to be paying them, but they're going to be at irregular times. So I want you to really think about that. But again, number one rule to buying pre-construction real estate is make sure that you're buying in the right location. I told you how to figure out the location, and to make sure that you understand if it's not an ideal location, then it's really not a deal. So that's the one thing I want you to think about. Number two is the developer's track record. M5E, we've been developing for a decade. We're delivering all our projects. We worked through COVID. Now there's a financial downturn now, and we're still delivering units. There's developers who are much bigger than us who have gone out of business, but we're still here, we're still standing, and we are still delivering units. This is one reason why I'm always on social media, I'm always making videos, I'm always creating content, so people know in real time he is here and he is accountable. If I'm a real estate developer and no one knows who I am, you gave me your life savings. What's to stop me from disappearing? Because you guys don't know who I am. I don't really have, I could just shut down the company, open up a new one. You really don't have the same level of accountability. So I want to be accountable to the people in which I am selling property to. So that's why I'm online and I'm letting people know, hey, this is me. I have at least 4 or 5 public speaking events every year that people can come out and meet me and know that I'm real. And then last week, which was this is March, I actually came out, had an open house at one of my sites, because there's so much things going on right now that people are pretending that they're on private jets. They're pretending that they're doing things that they're not doing. I said, you know what, listen, I've got to open up everything. I've got to invite people to the site so they could see, you know what, we're real. We're still doing construction. Here we are, walk through the site. So it can bring back consumer confidence, not to me specifically, but to the marketplace in general, because it's so difficult with developers right now. People are going out of business, and you know, people have the right to be concerned about their money. So for me, it's something that's very, very important to make sure that everything really makes sense. And that's why we opened up everything and we brought people in. So the developer's track record is very important. So what I want you to do is go and check out other stuff that they built before and go and look at it. So what was unique about what we did is we let people come see our phase 2 site, but the phase 1 site was right down the street. We had our Sprinter. We took them in the Sprinter to let them see what a finished product is going to be like. So you have to actually see what the developer has built before and make sure you're comfortable with the level of fit and finishings. Obviously, some developers are going to charge you a lot more, but they're going to give you more finishings. Maybe they're going to give you hardwood instead of carpet, or maybe they're going to give you granite instead of Formica countertops, things of this nature. So you have to be able to understand. You can't just say, well, I'm getting this number from this developer, or you know, this other developer is building at this standard, so this developer must do the same thing. No, go in there and check it out and make sure that you're comfortable with the level of finishings that they're going to give you, with the level of quality. Here in Canada, you can go on a website called Terran. There's other people throughout the diaspora who have warranty companies, or you go online and you just check. But I really like to go to things that they built before and make sure that the builder is credible. And then, of course, when you're building in difficult times like we built through COVID and we're still building, these are good signs. Now, a lot of people like to buy from these huge developers and they feel like they can't go out of business. It's not true. I really like a nice mid-sized developer, which we fall in that category, because we don't have so much extensive overhead. The problem is when you have a bunch of overhead and then you're not able to sell units, that's when you collapse. That's why you saw a lot of the big developers collapse. And then obviously some of the small developers, they were barely be able to get into the space. So if they haven't built anything, or they built a couple of houses before and you're buying from them, just you have to know your money's exposed. So that's something that I wouldn't do. So anyway, that's the second thing. It's about making sure the developer has a good track record. Now, the third thing that I want to talk about is price. The price has to make sense. And I touched on it a little bit earlier, but now we're going to get into a little bit deeper. What price makes sense? Well, first of all, you got to do your comparables. So if you're a realtor, you have a realtor friend, you have somebody in the marketplace, they got to be able to pull some listings and see what is selling in the neighborhood. So what is selling on resale and what has sold before on pre-sale. So these are data that is very easy to get, so you got to make sure you vet it. Just because someone puts a price list in front of your face from the developer and says it's X price, doesn't mean that price is reasonable, doesn't mean they've done the correct market research. It's your job to do the market research. You can't blame the developer later because you overpaid for a property and now it's the developer's fault. It's not the developer's fault. It's your fault. The developer's job is to try to make much money as they can. Most developers, my philosophy is a little bit different because I want to actually leave some money for the purchaser. But you know what I want to do? I still want them to know that I'm leaving money for the purchaser, meaning go and do your research and say, hey, market value for this property that M5E is selling is $500,000. He's selling it for $475,000. Why? Because I want to make sure that when you buy, you sign the papers with M5E Developments, you have instant equity. Why? Maybe it seems counterintuitive. Well, you got to ask yourself, why? Well, number one, it's a referral-based business. So if I'm able to make you $25,000 instant equity, you might go tell 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 people and be my best ambassador. When I was selling real estate, referrals was the way I got all my business. I never went door knocking. I never had cold calling. It was all about referrals, doing a good job for someone, and they're going to go out and sing your praise. It's the same thing with development. But again, since most developers don't come from the sales side, they have no understanding on what it's really going to take for them to be able to be successful. But I know, I get it. I've been there before. So at the end of the day, I'm not going to price it way out the box, get people to buy stuff at the higher end of the market, don't leave any equity in for them, and then later on, 5, 10 years from now, they're not happy or they haven't made money and they're going to blame me. Again, would it be my fault? No, but it's not my philosophy anyway. So that's the thing. I want you to understand where the prices are. So again, you're going to get comps. The next way to understand where the prices are and the price makes sense, if you're going to move in, you have to look at how much money you're putting down and what is going to be your interest rate and your monthly payment, and you have to make sure you're comfortable with it. So on top of looking at everything else, hey, it's a $500,000 property. I'm putting down $100,000. I'm financing $400,000. What is this payment going to be? Is it comfortable? How much of my income is this? Shouldn't be more than, in Canada, they say 40% of your gross income. So, you know, if you're bringing home $5,000 a month, it should be less than $2,000. It should be $2,000 or less. The numbers have to, the math has to math. If it doesn't math, even if it's a great price, but the payment doesn't work for you, then it's not a good deal for you. Okay? Now, if you're renting, again, and this is where people in Toronto have made a big mistake because they were renting. They looked at the numbers and they said, oh man, this price is so great. I'm going to make so much money. But they have to understand, if the rental numbers don't add up, then you're not going to make any money. Therefore, for instance, you buy a $500,000 property, and depending on the interest rate, it carries at $2,200. Then you have maintenance fees, normally around $400, $500, depending on the size of the property. But I told you the price, so the property's not big because in Toronto you can be paying $1,000, $1,100 a square foot. So you're looking at a property of $500,000 that's under 500 square feet. So now, it's $2,200 for the mortgage payment. You put down $100,000. Now you have a maintenance fee and you have a property tax. So it's another 4 and 4. So you're at $800 plus the $2,200. So you're at $3,000 a month. Well, how much can this rent out for? Probably around $2,400. Now, some of that $2,200 that you're paying in your mortgage payment is obviously principal. And it might be around $600 or $800 depending on your rate and things and your amortization. So that's how long you take the mortgage. But when you're in financial times like we are now, remember, after you put down $100,000 and now you're running a deficit of $600 every month, it gets tricky. And now you can't hold on to the property. It might impact other things than you want to sell. But the problem is you can't sell because you're in a down market and you're upside down. So you never want to put yourself in this position. But what people don't understand is you don't make money when you sell a property. You make money when you buy a property. But because they haven't taken the correct provisions to buy a property in the right way, they're already lost. They don't even understand. They think they're going to be able to win. They were never going to win because they bought the property the wrong way. They never went through it. They worked with an agent who's never done pre-construction. He thought, hey, it's the same thing. There's a pre-construction building around the corner or there's resale here. Why don't you choose one? And he thought they were the same. He or she thought they were the same, but they're completely different animals because you have to look at time horizons, things of that nature. So there's a lot of things that go into breaking this down when you're buying pre-construction. So that's why I want you guys to be successful. So another thing that you really have to understand when you're buying pre-construction is location within the building, within the unit itself. Where is it? Is it facing, like I had a deal that I did early on in my career and they were selling properties and you're like, oh, why are they so cheap? And they're facing a brick wall. because it's Toronto and you're in a building and it's everything was so close, the property was 30 grand cheaper, but you're facing a brick wall. At the end of the day, you could take a $30,000 cheaper property right now. Oh, it's great. Then when you sell it, the $30,000 that you got a discount on, you're gonna take a lot more than that because nobody's gonna want to buy a property that's looking at a brick wall. It's not Coming to America. I don't know if you guys remember that scene in Coming to America. Eddie Murphy rented this place, and boom, he's looking at a brick wall. Like, nobody wants that. So you have to understand, it's not a deal if the discount that you get, you have to give a bigger discount to someone else for them to take it, or the same discount. It's not a deal. So remember that. So if I buy a purple house and I save $50,000 because I bought this purple house, but then I can repaint the house for $10,000 and resell the house now as a white house, I got a deal. I'm up $40,000. If I buy a property in this building that's facing a brick wall and I save $20,000, and now as the property value goes up, I have to provide a deeper discount for the next person to buy the property, because at $500,000, someone might say, hey, you know what, I'll face a brick wall, it's so cheap. Now the property's $800,000. Someone says, hey, I don't want to buy $800,000 property facing a brick wall. So you got a $20,000 discount before, and now you got to give away 50 grand to get someone to take this property off your hands. So you didn't get a deal. So the location inside the building, or the location that you're buying, are you next to the elevator? Are you next to the garbage bin? I bought one unit again, and I've done this so much. It was over the parking garage. So you didn't really notice it. You saw it on the plan. It was over the parking garage, and then what happened was when the person moved in, there was this little hump, so you could do do do, and you just heard that. So, oh my God, what's happening here, right? So now you have to see, okay, how you can mitigate that situation. This was early on in my career. Like, we all make mistakes. I made a mistake. We went and we purchased property. Now, it was a rental property. They didn't live in there. The tenant who moved in never complained. We never heard any complaints, and we were able to sell it to someone else. Like 3-4 years down the line, we didn't have to discount that property, but that's only because the person didn't made the same mistake we made. It was over the parking garage, but they weren't in the property long enough to hear people going in and out, or they would have realized, hey, or maybe it didn't bother them. But these are the type of mistakes that you can make. So I want you to, first of all, make sure, if you're buying in a high-rise building, so that's something 10 stories and above, I do not want you to pay too many floor premiums. It doesn't make sense. Oh my God, the view. Normally, at least here in Toronto, floor premiums could be up to $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 every floor. So you can get the same unit on 5 as you get on 15, and you're gonna pay $50,000 more. Nobody is paying you $50,000 for the view. What they're going to do, they're going to take the view and they're going to discount what you paid. Again, it's not a good deal. So, you have to be careful. It's 100 grand to go up, 20 floors, or 60 grand, depending on the numbers. The math has to make sense. And that math doesn't make sense. So I don't want you to do that. I want you to make sure you stay away from the garbage area. So normally, if you're buying in a building, or if you're buying in a townhouse complex, make sure you're not near the garbage. It stinks. There's people coming in and out. There's safety concerns with it. There's animals. But again, if you're not patient and you don't understand and you don't go through all the paperwork and you don't check, you might wind up getting a discount on a unit or not, and then being right by the garbage dump, and then being upset later on and saying, oh, okay, why I'm at the garbage dump? It's because you didn't pay attention. You didn't read the paperwork. You didn't do your homework. I told you, this is a totally different animal. And again, because you're not walking into the unit right now, you might not see it on the plan, and you might overlook it. So you really do need an experienced agent who's done pre-construction to either walk you through the property, or walk you through the project, and make sure everything makes sense. So I really want you to pay attention. This is one of the good things that I'm breaking down for you, is the location within the building or within the community that you're buying in. Make sure it makes sense. Make sure you know the name of the street. A lot of times they'll tell you the name of the street in advance. There was a property in a development that happened many years ago, and it was Red Rum Circle, and that was murder spelled backwards. So when they went to go resell, these people, no one wanted to do it. Or developers here in Canada were selling properties before, and they had a 13th floor. Yeah, and you're buying at 1303, and no one wants to be on the 13th floor. So again, it was affecting resale value. So these are just some of the things that I can break down to help you understand when you're buying pre-construction real estate, you really want to make sure that it makes sense. Now listen, the next one that we're going to touch on, great one, is amenities. Amenities. Amenities is what I call fool's gold. Amenities are what is going to sell you the unit, but it's also going to have an inverse effect on your appreciation because amenities cause the maintenance fees to go up. And like I told you, people don't buy a price, they buy a payment. So maintenance fees are going up, then people have less money to be able to pay for their mortgage payment and their property tax, so they want a discount. So they want to get all the amenities and they want you to give them a discount so they can buy to pay for these amenities. So it's not a great idea. So I know it looks exciting. Oh, okay, I got a pool and a hot tub and a gym and a yoga studio and a dog thing. And honestly, in my 20 plus years, I've seen it all. There's all these amazing amenities that people have and things of that nature. But the reality of the situation is it makes the maintenance too expensive. They normally have a concierge. I mean, in New York, you might get a doorman. These things just start adding up. Right now in Toronto, you're paying about 70 cents a square foot. So if you have 1,000 square foot unit, it's probably 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom, something in that room, 2 bedroom, plus it in. So it's not a huge unit. You could pay $700 a month to maintain it because you have all of these amenities. For instance, I have 1,000 square foot unit in Niagara that is stacked townhouses. We do not have any amenities, which people thought was a bad thing before, but it's really not a bad thing. And the maintenance fees are $250. So the carry cost on that is a lot less. Now you say, well, out in the world, I still now have to go spend money to go to the gym or go to the pool or go to the yoga studio or whatever it is. You're not spending $450 a month. You're not spending $450 a month. I go to Lifetime Fitness. It's not Equinox, but it's just a tier below. We don't have an Equinox where I'm living right now. At the end of the day, I'm spending $180 on a membership, and it comes to yoga. Not that I'm going, but I would. But it comes with yoga. I need to work on my dexterity. It comes with a pool. It comes with a basketball court. It comes with everything except for personal training. At the end of the day, I'm paying $180, right? So these things are overinflated, but everybody sees, oh my God, that new building has this, that new building. This is the developer's way of bringing you in and getting you to buy a unit. My way of getting people to buy a unit is saying, listen, we actually don't have any amenities. We have visitors parking, and that's where it ends. We don't have amenities. Of course, we have security, we have garbage, but we don't a place to leave your garbage, things of that nature. But in terms of these expensive amenities, pools and yoga studios and all this, we don't do it because the homeowners don't realize that they're the ones who inevitably have to pay for this. And when they have to pay for it, they're not going to like it. Now, this actually ties in with the next one. So amenities, again, and maintenance fees go hand in hand. So you have to look at where the maintenance fees are going to be long term. So amenities is one, next one's maintenance fees. What are they? Like I said, it's 70 cents a square foot. That adds up very quickly. Now, if someone wants to buy a property, $700 could be, depending on the interest rate, between $120,000 and $180,000 on your mortgage payment. So what does that mean? If I had no maintenance fee, I could afford a property that is $700,000. With a maintenance fee, I might be able to only afford a property that is $520,000 to $600,000 because when you're going into the bank to get that loan, the bank is going to factor in those maintenance payments into your total carry cost. It's kind of weird because if you bought a freehold property, that's a detached house or townhouse with no maintenance fees or where you maintain your own thing, you still have maintenance. There's implied maintenance. You're still going to cut your lawn. You still have your eaves troughs to do. You're still going to clean your windows. But they do not factor that into the equation when you're getting approved. So it kind of creates this unbalance. So if you are trying to go out and you're going to sell a property that has maintenance fees that are disclosed rather than maintenance fees that are inferred, now it jaundices those two properties. So someone would rather take the freehold property. They can pay more for the property, and then they're still going to do the same amount of maintenance. But the bank will allow that, and it is just what it is because one fee isn't really it's just only implied. What that means is that's going to affect your property value. So if you're going to make sure if you're going to buy a condo development or you're gonna buy a townhouse development that has maintenance fees or sorry HOA, so home ownership fees. So that's home ownership association fees. You have to make sure that it makes sense, right? The higher these go, it has an inverse relationship on appreciation. So the higher the fees go, it's going to affect how much someone can pay because people don't buy a payment. I mean, people don't buy a price, they buy a payment. So if someone told me, right, and what that means is simple. If someone told me right now, hey, sure, you could buy a $10 million house and it's going to cost you 10 grand a month, I'm like, hey, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? But if someone says, well, you only can buy a $1 million house for 10 grand and 10 grand in my budget, I'm like, I guess that's what it is. That's it. It's that simple. You're going to stretch this payment 30, 40 years, whatever it is. No one's thinking that far down the line. They're just like, I want this house now. And people always want to get more property than they can afford. So this is why if you buy something with lower maintenance fees, it's going to, or HOA fees, it's going to actually allow you to sell that property for more later on. If you make these mistakes in advance, you're going to pay later. Again, you don't make money when you sell a property. You never do. You make money when you buy. And if you don't understand that, then you're already in trouble. But that's what this video is breaking down. Now, the next thing that I want you to know in my top 10 things is the project timelines. You have to understand what the timelines are for this new development project to be able to be built. You have to check in and see if the developer has been bringing projects along on time before, even though what happened in the past is no predictor of future success. Things can always go awry. In my first project, we built through COVID. My first project in Niagara, we built through COVID, and now we're building through a financial downturn. At the end of the day, the project is taking longer than people wanted it to take or we expected it to take. But you have to really kind of put that into your you have to put it into your situation and make sure it makes sense. So you say, developer said it's going to be 2 years. This could actually go anywhere from 2 to 4 years. Does this fit your horizon? If you're going to be moving in and you're planning on moving in and you have a plan set in stone that revolves around this new property, then you should go out and buy resale. You shouldn't buy pre-construction property and then try to pinpoint exactly when it's going to close. It's not going to happen. It's a moving target. And you have to understand from the developer side, it's not all about us. Of course, there's market conditions. Like we talked about COVID, we're talking about right now some tariffs that might be coming on. So there's different market conditions. But outside of that, then we have to do it with different municipalities, the cities. Like right now I'm working, I have a permit. I had to amend the permit because we got rid of the gas lines and we wanted to go all electric because the gas costs were getting too high. We thought electric was going to give people a more stable bill. So we said we're going to fix this permit. It was since December. Now we're in March. 4 months and I'm still working on it. At the end of the day, I'm not being completely delayed, but I'm being slowed down because I want to close off the walls and I can't. So we're still doing exterior work, we're still doing some electrical, but some of these units could already have drywall up and then we could start working on kitchens. So I am gonna be delayed. At the end of the day, there is a million things that have to go right to be able to deliver this type of project. If anyone has even done a basement renovation or a very small renovation, you could see the level of complexity that has to happen for someone to bring you 60, 70, 80, 100 properties at one time. High-rise building is even, is even more remarkable. So there's a lot of different things that go into it. So that's why I want people to be cognizant, to understand the timelines, leave some leeway. Because what happens is, they say frustration or angst or anger is all about unmet expectations. So your expectation is 2 years and you say, well, the developer hasn't delivered. First of all, the developer doesn't get paid till he delivers units. He or she delivers units. So it's not to say that the developer does not want to deliver these units on time. They absolutely do. But again, there's circumstances outside of their control many times. Sometimes they're within their own doing, but a lot of times there's certain circumstances that are outside their control. They want to deliver units. I want to deliver units. The quicker that you get the keys, the happier you are, and also the happier I am. I'm going to make more money. So our interests are aligned. So I just want to make it clear because a lot of times it feels like developers are stalling, they're dragging their feet, and sometimes they are. And you have to look at, again, what's their previous track record, but then look at the market conditions and don't ever put yourself in a situation where you need this property to close on this date or you're going to be in a problem. If you want that, you go out and you buy resale or you buy something that is, very, very close to completion. But don't buy something that you say, okay, we're getting married and I need to finish in 2 years. August is when we're coming back from our engagement. I think it's going to work out because it's not. Then you're going to be frustrated. Then you're going to be upset. Then you're going to blame the builder, but you only have yourself to blame. Next thing, let's talk about the down payment. The one thing I love and I don't know if I said that enough, about pre-construction is the ability to put down 5%, 10%, 15 or 20% of the purchase price, but make appreciation on the entire project. For instance, you buy a property for $500,000, you put down 10%, so you put down 50,000. If the market goes up by 10%, you don't make 10% on your 50,000, which is 5,000. You make 10% on the $500,000 property that you bought, which is 50,000. If you made 50,000 appreciation on the property and you only put down 50,000, it's 100% cash on cash return. That's how much appreciation you made. And I've seen it happen many times, which is how I made multiple millions of dollars in pre-construction because I was leveraging. So the down payment when you're buying a property is very, very important. So traditionally, if you're buying a condominium, the down payment could be upwards of 20% of the total purchase price because the builder can't start building the condominiums until they've normally sold 70 to 80% of the condominiums because they got to build them all at once. It's not like a house where they might be able to build one house, one townhouse here and there, and then you could just move in and they can do the next one. So there, traditionally there, you're going to pay up 10%. So if it's a $500,000 condo, you're probably going to put upwards of $100,000. But if it's a $5,000 house, you're going to only put down $50,000. So that's a rule of thumb. Also, houses are going to give you a much more predictable timeline. Again, it's not something that you could pinpoint exactly, but it's going to give you something much more predictable. Of course, if you're building 100 houses, they're independently done. They don't all have to close on the same time. You don't have underground parking. There's a lot less moving parts to deal with. When you get into high rise, you have to understand there's a lot more moving parts to deal with, and you have to be cognizant of that going in. So again, you could either buy something off plan, or you can buy something that's already very, very, very close to being done, but just make sure that you know so you're not frustrated. But that down payment is really going to be a key piece of this. Do you have enough money to put down? What are your cash projections? You know, if you take this money and you put it in the property, are you not going to have your emergency fund? How much money can you save over time? So maybe this down payment, do they want 10% today? Or do they want 5% today and another 5% in a year? So these things are all going to matter. Or if you have to put down 20%, when do they want the 20%? Do they want it over the next 3 to 4 years? Some people are doing $1,000, $2,000 a month. Your down payment or your deposit schedule to the builder is going to be paramount to being able to be successful. So the least amount of down payment that you can put down or the longer you can stretch it is going to be more beneficial. If you're putting down 10 to 20%, that's normally where you're going to be, and you're normally going to have to do it within about a year to 18 months. But if someone has a program for you and you can put down $2,000 a month and it kind of makes it easier on your budget, it's good. I had a great client of mine who wound up buying from a developer, and that's what they were doing. It was $1,500 a month, and they wound up paying it for, I think, about a year or so. Right, so they had about $18,000 to $22,000 that they were able to save up and put down, and it was an amazing opportunity for them. That's what allowed them to get into home ownership. So we have a plan that's similar to that. It's buy a home with no money of your own, where you can actually get a loan for your down payment. I know in the States it's similar. They have a NACA program where you're putting out 1%, 2%, 3%. And you can also use these for multi-res. So that's a great thing as well. Can you buy a property where it's either a duplex side by side, top and bottom? These are great opportunities for you to be able to move in, be successful, and win. So you have to really look at your leverage point and how much money you have to put down, and that is going to really help you and put you in a position to win. The next item on my top 10 is closing costs. What people don't realize, when you're buying an off-plan property or a new construction property, your closing cost is going to be a little bit more. Normally, they have something called development fees, which are the fees the developer, the city asks the developer to collect on their behalf. And sometimes the costs are shared because the city needs to put new infrastructure in. Normally, when you're building new construction, you're obviously building something where nothing was before or the density wasn't there. So in my case, we're building in Niagara Falls. I'm building 60 units where there was only 2 houses. So now the city's saying, hey, we're going to have to add in some more capacity to the sewer system, and we need some development fees to be able to do that. We're going to need more bus routes. We may need more schools, right? So this is what these development fees are for, and I'm going to collect them. In Niagara Falls, development fees are about $40,000 for each unit. So when you go to close, I say, hey, Mr. Purchaser, give me $18,000. I'm going to pay $22,000. You got to give me $18,000. So you have to understand what these closing costs are. You're also going to have legal fees with your lawyer. Sometimes there's an in-term closing. So there's two closings. There's a final closing. It's when the title switches into your name, but there's an interim closing when you're buying a pre-construction if it's not freehold. So that's a detached house. That's something with no maintenance fees. That's freehold. So you're gonna go right to final closing. If it's something other than that, if it's a condo townhouse or something of that nature, you're gonna go to interim where you get the keys and you pay a phantom mortgage, and then you have to go to final closing. But you're gonna need to pay for that interim closing, it's occupancy, and you're gonna need to pay for that final closing as well. So now you're gonna have more legal fees. So you have to be aware of this. Also, there's a warranty fee. Here in Canada, there's a Tarion warranty. A lot of municipalities do have warranties. There's a fee that you have to pay, almost like an insurance, it's a warranty. And that is gonna be something that's gonna be added to your bill after. So normally what we say, depending on where you are at, your closing costs maybe 2 to 4%. I need to make sure you have this money budgeted for the closing, because this is what you don't want to happen. If you're not able to close on time, a lot of people think, oh, I'll just lose my deposit, I'm gonna walk away. But it's not what's gonna happen. If the developer can take the property and they can sell it for more money, they will sell it for more money, but they will keep your deposit. And yeah, you're off the hook. But normally, if the property is worth more than you paid, you're gonna do everything in your power to take it and close it and resell it yourself. So a lot of times when people aren't closing, the market is down. So they feel like, you know what? I bought this property for $500,000. It's worth $400,000 now. I'm only gonna lose 50 grand. Let me just go ahead and walk away. But no, the developer's not gonna allow you to do that. Why? Because the developer doesn't want to take a loss. He can't sell the property. He or she can't sell the property. And they've been waiting for 2-3 years to get paid. And now you're walking away from the deal and saying, well, I'm not gonna get paid. Now remember, the developer has actually taken a loan from a bank to finance the project. So if you don't close with the developer, he can't pay out his construction loan, and then the developer is left holding the bag. So they're actually gonna sue you. So what happens is they're gonna take your deposit and they're gonna sue you. They're gonna resell the unit. Whatever loss they take, they're gonna sue you for it. So it could ruin your credit. If you have another property, they could put a lien on your current property. There's a lot of things that could happen and go really bad. So you have to make sure that you have that deposit, that you have those closing costs, you have those legal fees, and that everything makes sense for you. So we're gonna go through that and make it make sense. Exit strategy. That's the next one. And it's very important. When you buy a property, you always need to know, how are you getting out of the property? Are you getting out of the property? So this is the thing. Are you getting out of it? My recommendation right now, and it has been, is if you have a property, keep it forever. Why? Because it avoids tax. I know in the States, even here in Canada, they're talking about tax on unrealized gains, which means if your property value goes up on paper, you still have to pay tax on that. Anyway, that hasn't been done up to the point of this recording. It's going to be very difficult to do that. Real estate is honestly such a safe haven for people. So I don't know if it's actually going to happen. But as it stands right now, you should never sell a property. What you do is you buy a property, you pay it down, and then you refinance it. So you pull out money at the end of it, and then you refinance it. In Canada, if you buy a property and you move in and it's your primary residence, you don't pay any tax whatsoever. In the States, there is some tax when you sell your property, but it's less than, I think, regular state tax. So you're gonna be able to save some there. But nothing's better than no tax. So if you buy the property and you stay in it, whether you live in it or you're gonna rent it out, but you never actually sell the property, your goal is to just pretty much pay off the property, let appreciation take a course, that difference in the middle, grab some of that equity and buy another property and continue to do that over time, you're gonna get rich. It's a very, very simple strategy. It's a simple formula. You're gonna rent it out. So I wanna make sure right from the very beginning that you have your exit strategy. That's the problem. People do not have an exit strategy and they're always worried about at the end, well, what should I do? Before you get in, you should know what to do. So I get married. Before you get married, you know, okay, do I want kids? What do I want from my husband? What do I want from my wife? What are the things? What religion are they going to be? You know, are we going to be equally yoked? Everything. Don't get in, fall in love, and then try to figure it out later. This leads to unmet expectations, and it just leads to a bunch of problems in any relationship, in a business relationship. How far do you want this relationship to go? What are your goals and objectives? How many hours a day do you want to work? Do you want to work from home? Do you want to work in the office? What is your why? All of these things you need to know. So with real estate, it's the same thing. You need to make sure you have your exit strategy. My exit strategy is no exit strategy. I like to buy properties that are going to work for the long term. But again, if you're getting a condo where we talked about maintenance, and maintenance fees are going to constantly go up, it may force you to sell that property over time because you can't continue to afford the maintenance. Maintenance over time gets very egregious. It doesn't really make sense. And now you wind up selling the property. We had a property down here on the water where it's like $1.50 per square foot for maintenance. They had all these amenities and a doorman and people picking up your groceries and moving your car around. But you can't get financing for it because a bank wants to finance a property. They don't want to finance these amenities. So when they're looking at you paying $1,500 a month for amenities, they say, well, is this money that you're spending really on a property or is this a gym membership? So you have to be able to differentiate for it. So these are 9 things I gave you. The number 10 thing that I want to talk to you about when you're buying real estate, especially as an investment, is making sure you have a plan in terms of the renter. So if you're going to be renting it out, I want you to go to a property management company, especially if this is your first one. And I want you to pay a property management company, especially in states or in provinces where tenants have a lot of rights. And I want you to make sure that you're going to get a great tenant in there. And the number one thing is vetting the tenant property. What I see people do all the time who are renting out properties is they want to save money when they're renting out properties, or they want to get the most amount of rent. You need the biggest tenant. And one of the biggest red flags that people don't really understand is someone paying you rent up front. Hey, Mr. Owner, I don't have good credit, but I'm going to pay you a year up front. That year is going to be come and gone. The next year is going to be here, and they don't have good credit for a reason. Your covenant, your credit is always worth more than cash. So don't ever be fooled. So there's this property management companies. They're normally going to do it between $100, $150 a month. They're going to manage the property, going to get a good tenant in. I'm not telling you not to manage a management company. That's not true. You're going to still need to manage them. I want you to be in consistent touch with them, but I want them to get you a nice tenant so you understand it. They're going to go through all the correct procedures. I want you to look over these documents. I want you to look over. So even though the property manager can do it, I still want you to make sure you're comfortable with their employment. You can call the employment on your own. Make sure you pull the credit. Don't let anyone ever send you the credit bureau or to the property management company because there's too much fraud. People are just photoshopping credit bureaus and giving themselves, everybody has an 800 out here right now. It's just not the case. So you always have to pull it. There's also programs here that allow you to put the payments for the renter on the renter's credit bureau. Once you let them know that, a lot of people, they don't want that, so they're going to move on. And they don't want it because they're not paying on time. Because if you're paying on time, you would want those payments to show up on your credit bureau because they will actually work in your favor. But if you're not paying on time, then you really don't want that, right? So this is an amazing opportunity to make sure that you help you weed out these bad seeds. So you don't want them, and you have this property management company. And then what people don't really know is they also have renter's insurance. So the property management company that I work with, they will actually guarantee your rent. So if you pay them extra $50 a month and they pool all these resources, they will, if they have to evict a tenant or you go without a tenant for up to 6 months, they will pay and they'll cover the legal fees to make sure they have to evict the tenant and get them out. This peace of mind is amazing. For somebody who's new in this space, it just makes sense. And of course, you're new in this space because you're listening to the top 10 things that you need to do when you're purchasing off plan. So you would probably already know a lot of these things if you've done it before. But now, since you're a newbie, I want to put you in the game and put you in the game the right way. So one of the things that you need to make sure that you are doing is making sure you have this peace of mind. Yeah, I know people feel like, oh, I can get an extra couple $100 a month and I'll manage it myself. I still want you to be involved in your first property. I still want you to be involved. I'm going to give you my bonus in a second. I still want you to be involved. But at the end of the day, I don't want you to be so price sensitive. If that extra $200 is going to put you in the red, then you shouldn't be buying that property. If you can't pay $200 for property management, then you definitely can't take vacancy, and then you start doing things that don't make sense. So I want you to be very careful. I want you to follow these guidelines. Make sure that you get referrals from these people. Make sure you check their social media. Make sure that you personally pull their credit. Make sure you double check the job. Make sure you get a property management company to manage it for you, but you still stay involved. And if you do all these things and you do these checks and balances, 99 times 100, you're going to get yourself a good tenant. And do not ever be fooled by fool's gold. Don't think a year worth of cash is better than a good credit score. Now, my number 10, I just gave you, but my number 11 is a bonus because I always like to give a little bit extra, a little bit more than you bargained for. Remember, I said location was my first thing, and location is actually my last thing. But this location that I want to talk about is location of the property in proximity to where you live if it's an investment. If you're buying off plan, it's an investment. I want you to buy a property that's no more than 90 minutes away from where you live. You need to make sure you can get to the property and make sure you can manage that property. So when you're buying off plan, again, don't go and buy something, even if it's in a great place, but it's not close to you. I don't want you to buy it. So let's just say you're from New York and you want to buy your first property and say, oh, I'm going to buy it in Toronto. Toronto is a great location. It's not a great location for you, because you got to fly an hour to get here. Any problems that occur, you have to fly over here, or you have to come drive 8 hours to get here. No. People are so price sensitive that even if it's a great location, but it's not a great location for them, they're still buying it. Then they have this property management company that's good, but I told you, I still want you to manage the management company. So if you're not going to be able to do that now because you're too far away and you can't see the property, that's when you lose touch. And remember, this is a property that we want to hold forever. Not saying that you might not move, you might grow, you might have to shift. Things happen in life and we understand that. So we can't plan for every eventuality. But I want to make sure that you have this property close to where you are, especially in the beginning. And I want you to build a plan to make sure, if you're going to do this again and again, that we buy multiple properties in the same area. So when we're buying our plan, we want to have a succession plan to make sure that we can get multiple properties in the same area so it doesn't become difficult to manage, because we're always chasing a deal here or there. So we want to make sure we got a location with some long-term upside so it makes sense. So I've gone over the top 10 things that you need to do when you're buying off plan. We call it pre-construction here in Canada, but when you're buying off plan, you're buying just from a layout. I want you to really take your time. I want you to evaluate the layout. I want you to look at the location. I want you to make sure you have the correct down payment, understand the closing costs, the location within the building, the location in proximity to where you are now, the location in proximity to highways and byways. You know, I've given you so many gems here. So anybody who you think that wants to buy pre-construction, they want to buy our plan, I want you to share this video with them. I'm telling you, it's going to save you a lot of time, energy, and money. They're going to be your best friend if they're not already. Thank you. I'm Sherrod McQueen from M5V Developments. Let's work.